Mornings are better with a warm beverage, even for Latter-day Saints. Meet Postum, the ideal coffee alternative and proud sponsor of This Week in Mormons podcast. Spotted on the coffee aisle at Smith's Grocery or at your local nearby store. Can't locate it? No worries. Order it at postum.com. Explore delicious recipes to tailor your Postum experience. Start your day off right with Postum.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to This Week in Mormons. It is the Twin Siblings edition with your hosts, Matt and Melissa. How are you, Melissa?
I'm doing so good. Matt, how are you doing?
I'm doing so good as well. Today, my wife graduated with her PhD, so I went to the Utah State graduation ceremony today.
I know, that's a big deal.
It was fun, and at one point, because everybody cheers or whatever, at one point her brother just shouts out, "That's my sister!" It's kind of fun. But I have a question for you, Melissa. Okay, so they said at the end of this ceremony, there's going to be free Aggie ice cream out on the field.
That's the thing. They always do that. Aggie ice cream's a big deal.
Yeah, so for listeners who don't know, Aggie ice cream is it Utah State makes the Aggie ice cream?
Yeah.
And then they sell it, and people in Cache Valley absolutely love Aggie ice cream.
Yes.
I've never been a fan, but I didn't ever dare say anything when I lived there because people, it's like a religion kind of, like you can't say I don't love Aggie ice cream.
I can't believe you're saying it now. Like people will probably follow you home and do mean things to you.
Okay, so here's my dilemma though. So it took us a while to find each other and get over to the field. And by the time I got to the field, they were all out of Aggie ice cream.
No way.
And I could see that there were some people carrying like 5 and 6 containers of Aggie ice cream. Like they weren't just taking one. And so
did they have those little like single serving kind of cup things? Okay.
Yeah, with the lids and then the tiny spoons.
And so
stuff.
You were wondering, is it appropriate to wrestle someone for their ice cream that I don't actually like that much? Is that the question?
That's the question. Well, people offered passive aggressive things I could do, right? Like say, excuse me, I never had a chance to even try any. May I please have one of those from you?
You could walk across the street to the Aggie ice cream store and just get one there.
And purchase it. But shouldn't I be able to? I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. What's the etiquette there, Melissa?
Yeah, I think you let it go. It's ice cream. It's ice cream. Also, you didn't graduate. It's your wife.
I know. The only thing that made me feel bad is somebody that was with us said, "I've never tried Aggie ice cream before." And I was like, "I'll go get you one so you can try it." But so they missed out.
It's ice cream, so it tastes a lot like ice cream. I mean, I'm not going to act like it's anything different, but they do a good job. We so every time our YSA ward has a dessert, it's Aggie ice cream. Also at school that I work at, anytime it's a dessert, it's Aggie ice cream. But yeah, so I mean, they're definitely a thing here in the Valley. But yeah, you'll be okay. I think everybody who didn't get some will be okay. I think it'll be fine.
Well, so in Young Men's, you're supposed to try to let the young men take a leadership role in planning activities and stuff.
Yes.
What that basically meant in Cache Valley was I plan the activity, they plan the treats, which is basically whatever we do, go get Aggie ice cream at the end. And that was like their contribution to leadership.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
that's okay.
I have bittersweet feelings about Aggie ice cream.
Okay. Well, congratulations to your wife. I've always said you married up, but now you really married up. Like, woo!
Yeah. I was super proud of her. And she did all kinds of fun poses and stuff like that. I was like, good job. It was great.
I'm sure she'll be glad to hear that's what you took from it, is that she had some great poses. Perfect. Good job.
Sometimes we do things and the photos are kind of lame afterwards. And she knows, like for me, lame photos is a no-go. So we got to have good photos.
Okay. Jumping in the air, holding your diploma, that kind of a thing.
She did like the Heisman stance with her diploma.
Oh, good.
Yeah. And they had a camera that would, like, as you go across the stage, there was this camera that would show you on the Jumbotron. So she did this really kind of silly thing in front of the camera for the Jumbotron.
Oh, that's fun.
Yeah, I was like, that's kind of out of character for her, but thank you for making it more. Yeah.
More entertaining.
Yeah.
Okay, well, should we get to some of this week in Mormon news?
There is so much to talk about this week. I am so excited.
Okay, I'm glad. Let's start with me quizzing you. Okay.
Okay.
We talked about the church. They put out statistics around this time of year, and we've talked about a few, but we've got a new one this time for you to consider. Okay, this is membership growth by U.S. state. So I want you to just say off the top of your head, of all of the United States and the United States, which ones do you think had the most church growth? And side note, this does include baptism of 8-year-olds. So it does include that. Okay.
So because I've been talking to return missionaries, and so I hear that Texas, Oklahoma, and Las Vegas are on fire missions.
Those are where the field is ripe.
That's what I've been hearing.
Sort of. Texas is 15. Oklahoma is 16. Nevada's 44. So sorry.
Okay.
No,
but
out
Las
of
Vegas.
50. Out of 51.
So now I have to think who's having lots of babies. California
actually has the biggest decrease. Well, one of the biggest decrease in membership in the church. It has negative growth. So I'm sorry. California, they've had a negative growth for the past almost decade.
So Idaho, is Idaho growing?
Idaho is not really high on the list. Nope, they're 43. They're down there by Nevada. Utah's 38. Matt, no, guess what?
I really like playing these games, but I hate it when I lose.
I know. I know. It's the competitive nature. Okay. 10% growth is Rhode Island.
Whoa.
10% growth. They're the largest by far. After that, it drops down to like 3.5%. The next ones that are all around 3% are South Carolina, Arkansas, New York, Missouri, and Tennessee.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Now I'm thinking these are what we got to remember for temple announcements in the next general conference.
Oh, you're right. Then we would look like we know what we're talking about. That is a good point.
So there's nothing about those that makes any sense to me. Does that just mean there's righteous people there that are doing missionary work?
I don't know what it means, honestly.
Yeah, that seems so random. Arkansas and Missouri are close to each other, so maybe, but South Carolina and then New York State? I don't know.
Yeah. Okay, so you're welcome.
Melissa, that was a fun, quick clip. Listener, I hope you played along with us. And if you did, I hope you did better than I did at guessing.
You probably did. Odds are good you did better than Matt.
Okay, my quick clip comes from the United Nations. They have a story about how the Church of Jesus Christ is helping displaced women and children in Chad, Ethiopia, and South Sudan. And so they're talking about how the church is giving $6 million to the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees to help nearly 85,000 refugees in those countries I just mentioned.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. Two things I like about this story. Number one, I like that the church is actually doing that. Like, that's a really cool thing. But then also I like that the United Nations called us the Church of Jesus Christ. They didn't even call us Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. They made it sound like we're the Church of Jesus Christ. So that's kind of...
wow. So you really took that as like a personal endorsement from the United Nations. Like, that was intentional. We're the ones.
They're like, if there's another Church of Jesus Christ out there, they're not giving us millions of dollars to help refugees. So we're not going to say the whole name. You guys can just be the Church of Jesus Christ as far as we're concerned.
I'm sure that was intentional and the meaning of it. Yeah. Awesome. Hey, you have young men in your household. You have youths.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did they do a day of service this week?
They were supposed to do a day. Yes, we were all offered the opportunity to participate in a day of service this week.
Okay. Well, yeah, that didn't happen in your household.
Yeah.
That's okay. So that's what happened around the world. All of the youth organizations around the world participated in a global day of service. I think it was kind of like every stake or every ward decided what way they wanted to serve their individual communities, and then they went out and did it, and that happened. Yeah, it happens every year.
Yeah, and I hope that next year we will be involved more than we were this year.
Will they still be youths next year? A couple more years in the youth?
Yeah,
Okay.
they'll be seniors in high school, so they'll
Okay.
be hopefully involved in doing that.
Maybe
Okay,
you should
so
keep them at home for a hard labor camp day of service. That feels like you.
yeah, that's true. Oh, you
Yeah.
don't want to serve in the community? I have something for you to do.
Yeah.
It'll
Okay.
be much, much worse. I think it slipped under my radar. I just wasn't paying attention, but I'll be on my A game next year, Melissa. You just
Okay. You'll probably be young men's president after this admission. So
Hey,
I wish you luck with that.
did I tell you what my church calling is?
No, did you just get one?
Oh my heavens, Melissa, it is seriously my most
Wait,
favorite
can I
church.
guess? Because
Yeah.
you're so excited about it. So I know some things
Yes.
you would like to do.
Uh-huh.
Okay. Number one, primary chorister.
Okay, primary is right, but it's not chorister. I would love chorister, but
Is
this
it
is even
nursery leader?
so no, you'll never
Okay.
guess it because it's not a real calling.
Oh, okay. Okay.
It
Tell
is
us.
it is in our primary class, there's a whole bunch. I think they're like sunbeams. Maybe they're a little bit older than some, but they're about like 6 or 7 years old. And
Okay.
it's all boys and they're a handful.
Uh-huh.
And there's one boy that's more of a handful than all the other boys.
He
And my
reminds me of
calling
you. He reminds me of little Matthew.
and my calling is to hang out with him at church on Sundays.
Aw, that's
I love it
excellent.
so. I know. I don't have to prepare lessons. I don't know. I just hang out with this kid. If he's really good, I give him some candy at the end that his mom
That's what I
probably
was
takes
gonna
away.
say. Like, are you coming with like a little diaper bag of goodies, like a
Yeah.
whiteboard to color on and some little
Yes.
snacks? Like or is your method just like, hey, if you need a break, let's go out to the lawn and toss the football? Because I could see you doing that too.
I'm willing to do that if he
Yeah.
decides that's what he wants to do. But so
Okay,
far,
okay.
it's called a boogie board. But basically, it's like a magnetic pencil that draws on this little tablet, and then
Uh-huh.
you push a button and it clears everything off
It
the
deletes it.
tablet.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
So in singing time, I just tell him things to draw pictures of, and he draws pictures all through singing time. And then during the lesson, I say, okay, listen, buddy, I've got my Walmart fruit snacks, and I really want to give those to you. And then you also have your list of things from your mom that if you want to play Minecraft after church, what you have to do today. So let's make sure we do this for the next 20 minutes. We can endure and be good. And he's like 80% good. And I'm like,
Yeah.
have the candy. That's good enough
That's
for me.
fantastic. No, that's a great calling. You're gonna enjoy that.
I love it so much.
Do you want to know what I think? I think that NBA YoungBoy needed someone like you in his youth, a mentor like you.
That's a great transition to the story I
Thank you.
wanted to talk about.
Thanks.
So wait,
Thanks.
have we talked about NBA YoungBoy before, Melissa?
I mean, briefly, I know that you know who he is and that
Yes.
he's somehow doing something in Utah and he's also in jail. I don't understand everything, but that's what I know.
NBA YoungBoy. NBA stands for Never Broke Again. YoungBoy.
Oh.
He is like one of the most streamed artists on Spotify. And it turns out every basketball player I've ever talked to knows and loves NBA YoungBoy, his rap music.
But NBA has nothing to do with the National Basketball Association.
No.
Okay.
It's just the name he chose.
Never Broke Again. Okay.
And for our listeners, he swears a lot. He's kind of filthy in the things he does, but
how very Mormon adjacent of him. Wait,
well, so
is he Mormon?
Here's what's Mormon adjacent about him. He was arrested on gun charges in Louisiana a while back. And rather than putting him in jail, there was a family in Huntsville, Utah that said, we know this kid and we can help him get on the straight and narrow path if you just let him live with us in Ogden, Utah area.
Wait, what? How did they know him?
I don't know. They maybe at a basketball. I don't know how they met him, but somehow he knew them. And the judge is like, okay, let's give it a try. So they build this expensive home with a recording studio inside of the home. And NBA YoungBoy is only allowed 3 visitors, and they have to be approved by the court. And one of the visitors he chose was the LDS missionaries. And so everyone was so excited. Yeah, so everyone's so excited because they're like, NBA YoungBoy's going to join the church.
Okay.
But the story this week is we don't know if he joined the church, but we do know that he's been arrested on 65 counts of prescription drug fraud in Cache County. Yeah,
well, he never wants to be broke again, so he's got to do something to make the money.
And so now he's in jail. Now, they put him in jail in Louisiana, and he doesn't
seems
get
like
to...
he deserves to be in jail. It seems like it.
I don't like to judge other people, Melissa. I feel like it's not my place to
Don't
judge.
you? Is that true about you? Because I feel like you do like to judge other people. But anyways, that was the side note.
But it turns out there was a judge whose job it is to judge, and he decided.
Okay.
So I don't know. I feel like we lost NBA YoungBoy's soul. We had a chance,
Yeah.
and it was snatched away.
His bishop needed to get more creative, assign him someone to walk through life with him, offer him treats when he behaved appropriately, say things like, hey, if you sell those prescription drugs today, you might not get to play Minecraft after church. Something like that would have worked.
Wouldn't that be great? We should have tried it. Yeah. Oh, well.
Okay. Here's the next story. And I do have some thoughts about it. Okay. But, BYU every year, this time of year, holds their women's conference. It's basically a conference where you can pay money to go listen to women speak about, I guess, women's issues kind of a thing. This year, for the first time ever, the keynote speaker was anybody who didn't go to the conference could watch the keynote speaker for free online. And it was the General Relief Society president. Her whole presidency has been giving talks and doing things as part of the conference, but they did stream her entire keynote address to anybody who wants to watch it online. And then, it's just kind of a bunch of talks and kind of lifting up women and spiritually lifting up women, I guess. And it's a thing we do.
Is it the Education Week for Women kind of thing that BYU does? Okay.
Yeah, basically that's what it is. And then Education Week will be later on in August.
Mm-hmm.
And here's the thing. I'm super glad that we have, outstanding women speakers and leaders and that they want to spiritually build up women. I hate that we do it this way, okay? Because here's my problems. Number one.
Is it the format?
That it's at BYU and that you have to go there and pay to get in?
Yeah.
That's a little bit of my problem because it's $100 to go, okay? Which to me, that's not cheap.
Right.
And you have to, but here's the thing. It's like, okay, since you have to pay for it, and this is where we hear our women leaders speak. Like, guess who I don't hear in general conference? These women. Because there's never enough time for all of them to speak or to have something to say. Even at, like the Relief Society broadcast where they had that special birthday party a few weeks ago. And guess what? Only a couple of women spoke. And here you've got women from the entire Relief Society General Presidency, Young Women's General Presidency, Primary General Presidency, and all of their boards. This is where these women are actually like speaking and when you can look to them as leaders. And so number one, I'm frustrated that you got to pay to go to it because not only is it a financial concern, but in a way it kind of feels like almost like hero worship. You know what I mean? Because like when you go to Education Week, the people that speak there, they're kind of like big names in the church and they sell books. And it kind of it feels like it's putting them in on a pedestal in kind of a weird way. It feels I don't know. It feels weird to me. And again, I want them to do this and I want everybody to have access to it. So it'd be great if everybody had access to it for free, like to all of the talks and all of the, inspiring messages. And maybe they do eventually, like afterwards in a few years or something. I think you can find old stuff online.
So would you like it? Would you like it if they live streamed everything for free?
I think it would be good if they live streamed everything for free. And I understand, like, this is a conference that BYU is putting on, like, right? They're paying for facilities. But my understanding is that, like, the speakers get paid too. Like, you get paid to present at these things. So, so I understand that there is a cost that's, required to put this on and that, maybe that's why they're not releasing it for free. But, you know what I would like is to have a women's conference at conference. Like, I think it'd be better to just go back to like a women's session of conference where we do get to hear from all the leaders. Because it seems like they took that away and now you hear from one or two women at conference total. I don't know. Yeah.
Right. I have two things I'm wondering about. First, I do wonder if perhaps the women leaders asked to not have the women's session of conference because maybe it was a lot for them to organize that and put that on.
Maybe.
But then the other thing I wonder is what if BYU's women conference charged the money for the people who wanted to go be there in person, but then said, clearly these in-person people are paying for the conference. Let's live stream it to everybody in the whole world for free. because saints in Africa, saints in Asia, they're not going to be able to come to BYU.
And I think they had models like that during COVID when nobody could attend in person.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I also do still feel like it's weird that it's like, I don't know. I think it's weird that it's this place where it's like, oh, let's go and just like, they're not speaking for the church at these conferences, but they're giving church talks. And I feel like that we do have kind of an issue with that in our church where it's like a lot of people hold conferences and bring in speakers and charge money, like maybe like these preparedness conferences or stuff like that. And so it's like we're kind of following that same model, but it's with our actual leaders. I don't know. Something about it makes me uncomfortable. I'm sure it's a great event. I've definitely gone to women's conference before and, been uplifted, but there's just parts of it that make me uncomfortable.
I like it, Melissa.
Okay,
thank you for sharing that.
Matt, you are welcome.
Okay, my story is couldn't be more different. It's about members of the church who are in the NFL draft.
Ooh, there are two of them. I know what that is, the National Football League.
Yeah. Yeah. Because for a lot of us, football is what we worship. First we worship Jesus and then football. For a lot
both on Sunday. Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
And then, okay, so it seems like Utah is going to get an NHL team.
Wait. You have to tell me who the NFL draft people are.
Do I? There's so many people that get drafted in the NFL. Let me look.
But they're return missionaries. They're return missionaries.
Yeah, that happens all the time. Okay, let's see.
Okay.
University of Utah players, Sandoval. You just did this so that I would have a hard time saying their names.
No, because it's University of Utah players. That's why. That's my alma mater. Yeah.
Sion Vake and Devon Vele.
Yeah. Okay, now do you know Wilson? Josh Wilson. I think that's his name. The Wilson, no, dang it.
Ryan Smith.
Okay, Matt. No. He played for the New York Jets.
Zach Wilson.
Zach Wilson.
Zach Wilson.
Thank you. Man. Okay, he played for the New York Jets. He didn't do so well. And then he just got transferred to the Broncos.
Yes.
Yes. And he's a member of the church, at least Mormon adjacent. Is he going to do good? Are we going to cheer for him?
I don't know if he'll even play. He didn't do so well. He's not going to be.
I know, but guess what? I think this is a chance for him to do better. I think this is a chance for him to have more fans, and because I think in New York he got heckled a lot and the fans weren't with him. I think this is his chance to restart his career. I am sad because Russell Wilson is my very favorite quarterback ever. He's the only one I really know because I love the Seattle Seahawks, and then he went to the Broncos, and now he's been traded in exchange for Zach Wilson.
Well, no, he went to the Steelers, and he'll still play. Yeah. I think Russell Wilson has a better chance of reviving his career than Zach Wilson, to be honest. The only thing that makes Broncos fans salty is that Zach Wilson chose a different number than Russell Wilson because they already had jerseys that said Wilson. Yeah, and they don't want to have to buy new Wilson jerseys, and so they're like, "Come on, Zach, why don't you just keep that same number that Russell Wilson had?"
Okay, well, we spent a lot of time on something that I didn't know that much about, but thank you for entertaining me. Now, what were you saying about the NHL?
So
National
Ryan Smith,
Hockey League.
Ryan Smith, the billionaire from Utah County.
Yeah, and Mormon, and faithful Mormon. And also, you can't say Ryan Smith without including his wife, Ashley. They're a team, Matt. Ryan and Ashley Smith. Okay, sorry, go on.
I didn't know this. Well, he owns the Utah Jazz.
Okay.
And he is bringing the Phoenix Coyotes NHL team to Utah.
Yes.
And so he will be the only... Wait. No, I don't know.
He's bringing a team. It's going to be the first National Hockey League team in Utah, but he gets to rename them. He's looking at it as a brand new team. They're not going to.
He doesn't want to keep the Coyotes name.
Yeah, they're not going to be. It's going to be the same players, but it's going to be a new team. He's revamping the Delta Center or whatever that's called now. Where they're going to play.
Could they call it the Jazz?
No, but he's opening, and he's completely opening to all of the public. Give me your name ideas. Give me some ideas of what we should be called. And I think there's been a lot of pretty funny, Mormon related team names,
like Stormin Mormons.
Stormin Mormons or the Elders.
Oh,
That'd be great, wouldn't it? Yeah. Let's see. How about Snipes. Salt Lake Snipes. Do you know what a snipe is?
Well, we would say when we were young, we'd say, want to go snipe hunting? And
Snipe
it was like,
hunting. Yeah, that's classic
yeah.
LDS culture. Snipes
Uh-huh.
aren't real for our listeners who never played this at young men's camp or young women's camp.
Yeah, you don't want to
you'd
go
have
snipe hunting.
Yeah, when you'd have the new, the young kids who it's their first year at camp, the older kids would say, we're going to go snipe hunting. It's a tradition. And then you'd wander around in the dark hunting something that doesn't exist. That's my recollection.
Yeah, it was something like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Okay.
Hmm.
Well, I
I
was
don't know
Shrine and
that
Ashley
there's...
Smith Luck in their purchasing of the NHL team. I think they are a great representation of Mormon people. I really think they do a great job out there in the world.
Really?
I do. Yeah.
I'm a little salty with them, Melissa.
Remember how you like to judge people? Go on.
Well, so this has come up recently in the news that they would like $1 billion to build a new stadium in Salt Lake City and keep the Jazz in Salt Lake City.
And the Jazz are going to stay in Salt Lake City.
They want the taxpayers they want to raise sales tax in that area and have the government pay them $1 billion to help them pay for all of these costs. Otherwise, he said he would move the team to Utah County. So
Great. Utah County can afford it. It's fine.
When you're already a billionaire, I don't like you asking for billions of dollars more from taxpayers.
He's trying to improve the community, Matt. Quit being a communist.
Okay. All right. Well, then, if that's a communist thing, I suppose I can like him. Okay.
Okay, great.
If it all comes down to that.
Okay. Hey, can we play Famous Mormons? And can one of my guesses be Ryan Smith?
Okay, let's do Famous Mormons. I'm excited.
Okay.
Melissa, have you ever watched the Vanderpump Rules?
I've never heard of the Vanderpump Rules.
It is a very famous show on Bravo. So it's a spin-off of The Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, but I think it's 13th season, something like that.
The Vanderpump Rules is in its 13th season, and I've never heard of it, and it's like The Real Housewives. Okay, got it.
It's a spin-off. Like, one of the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills owns this like hotel and restaurant. And so it's a reality show all about what happens in this hotel and restaurant. And
Matt, the way you live your everyday life just is so disconnected from the media that you seem to know everything about. Like, I just can't ever understand. Like, how is Matt invested in this story? Okay, sorry. Okay.
Yeah, well, so it's kind of, I've actually never watched it, but it's kind of fun because there are all these people that want to go to Hollywood and be famous. And many of them have to start out working in restaurants and bars. And so you have all these beautiful people that are trying to become movie stars someday that now are working in restaurants and bars, but on a reality show. And so it gets a lot of drama.
Okay. Wow. And so one of the people on Vanderpump Rules is a Mormon.
Was raised a member of the Church
Mormon.
Yeah.
Okay. Give me your list.
I'll just say there was something happening on the show that this character on the show.
The show that you've never watched. Okay.
So there was some erotic kind of thing happening. And he said, I was raised a Mormon until I was 14 years old. And so I've got these sort of good boy vibes in me that makes me feel uncomfortable right now. And so I was like, oh, he was a member of our church until he was 14.
Okay, excellent. I'm going to do well.
Okay. So Brock Davies is one of your choices. You don't know who any of these people are.
I don't. Nope.
They're handsome. Katie Maloney.
Okay.
Or Tom Sandoval. Now, you could look at the bios of the individuals and maybe it'll give you a clue of which of them is a member of was raised a member of our church for a little while.
Okay. Well, you said it was a guy, so I'm going to cross out Katie.
Oh.
And I'm going to go with Brock.
Hey, you're right. It's Brock.
It was, huh? Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Brock, you might say, oh, he was probably from Utah or something like that. No, that's why I put Katie Maloney on there, because she was actually from Park City, and I thought I could trick you. You'd be like, oh, Park City. Brock is from Australia, and when he was living in Australia, he was a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
Yeah, that was super awesome, Matt. That was great content. Thank you.
Melissa, our listeners who watch Vanderpump Rules, which is probably like 30% of the listening audience.
I'm sure.
They already knew this story before I even shared it. They're like, of course, it's Brock. He told us on that last episode.
Yeah. Next week, I'm going to do famous Mormons, and I'm going to be like, famous Mormons who live in my neighborhood, because that's how well you're going to know the people as well as I know these people.
But
Okay.
I'm serious. Vanderpump Rules is a very popular show.
Okay. I believe you. Okay. Let's do big deal, little deal, no deal.
I get to go first.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. I'm ready. So you give me the headline. I'll tell you what I think.
Yes. New allegations of federal stock violations by the LDS Church. Is that a big deal, little deal, or no deal? 3, 2, 1. Little deal?
Big deal?
Oh, yeah? Big deal?
Well, I don't know, but it says that there are new allegations. And I know in the past, these have been a pretty big deal. Like, people get pretty worked up about us breaking the law and such, you know. Tell me the story.
The allegation is that Ensign Peak failed to disclose some of the investments and trades that they were making because, they're supposed to.
Okay. And Ensign Peak is who manages the church's finances.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Who is alleging this? Like, where did this come from? Like, the audit?
This story is on the Salt Lake Tribune, but it just says that there's an independent watchdog group that has made these allegations.
Do you know what I sometimes think? Like, especially when I'm watching court cases, which I've been doing a lot of lately, I think, like, what if I had somebody like talking about the everyday things I do and acting like it meant something? And that's kind of like, like, oh, and then she walked through the kitchen with a knife. Okay, but like, I wasn't going to kill anybody. Like, sometimes I walk through the kitchen with a knife, but then when it's brought up in court, it seems like very serious. So sometimes it seems like when you have like a watchdog group, they're just waiting for you to do something sus. Do you think that's what this is?
It's hard for me to say because the Salt Lake Tribune puts so many of their stories behind a paywall, and I don't want to pay for which I know seems mean to say I don't want to pay for Salt Lake Tribune's coverage, but I in my experience, when I do pay for their stories, it's like 50% shock headlines and 50% real story. So I don't want to say there's nothing there because about half the time I feel like the Salt Lake Tribune uncovers something that I say, oh, that's something really important and meaningful. But just based on the headline and then the information in the little byline, you can see it seems to me like it's not that big. I don't know. To me, it's a bigger deal when it's not an independent watchdog group saying it, and there's some kind of fine or some kind of thing that happens, right?
Yeah.
Independent watchdog groups, I like them. I think they do a great job of like making allegations about things, but until it's been like settled or resolved legally, I tend to say I'm not sure if it's a big deal or not.
Yeah. And the church hasn't made any comments on it, so it's hard to say. It's kind of like a one-sided accusation right now.
Yeah. Which, lots of big stories start that way. So it could be a big story, but at the moment, I'm not sure. That's why I said little deal, because I'm not sure what it is yet.
Okay. All right. Well, speaking of stories that the Salt Lake Tribune digs up and might be something and might not, that's kind of what mine is too. But don't worry, I've got a good headline for you to judge it by. Are you ready?
Mm-hmm.
Are female leaders doing less of calling the shots in their church callings? LDS women no longer meet separately with a designated apostle liaison. Big deal, little deal, or no deal? 3, 2, 1.
Little deal? I can't decide on this one.
I know, it's kind of complicated. I'm going to explain the story to you, okay?
Okay.
So basically what the Salt Lake Tribune uncovered is that the General Relief Society president, the General Young Women's president, the General Primary president, essentially the women who have the most authority in our church, they don't meet separately with apostles to discuss the calling or the people or the things that they're overseeing. And in the past, they would meet with apostles to discuss those kinds of things. They would have regular one-on-ones with apostles. That is not happening anymore. Now, the shift has actually been going on for a few years, but nobody really understood it. And I think what's kind of happened is as in the past 6 months or so, as a lot of these LDS female leaders have been talking about, we have power, we have authority, we have priesthood, we have covenants, like really focusing on, hey, women in this church are important, right? And we have callings and we have authority to do things. Then people started looking at that and being like, well, do you really? Because you're the top women in the church, and it seems like you can't actually do anything without going through a man first.
Yeah.
And in looking at that, what they realized is that, it's probably been like 5 years ago, the leadership of the church kind of shifted the way that women leaders are, I guess, handled. And so they don't meet with, for example, the first presidency. The Relief Society general president doesn't have a regular meeting with the first presidency. She doesn't have a regular meeting with the 12 apostles. Instead, what they have are committees that women are now on. So women didn't used to be on the committees, and now women are on the committees. So now there's a committee, and some of the female leaders are assigned to each of those committees, and they meet as committees, and they, work on things and solve problems. And that's where their voice is heard. But they don't meet, with top leadership as part of their calling. Did I explain that in a way that makes sense?
Yeah. And so that's the reason why I can't decide. To me, it could be a big deal, but it's hard to know what's happening, right? So it could be a very good thing that they no longer have to, let's say, answer to a member of the Quorum of the 12 Apostles. It suggests that maybe they have their own independent sphere of influence, and they can run it without reporting to somebody, right? Like a Ward Relief Society president reports to the bishop, maybe, or maybe to a counselor. But if you were to say, you don't have to meet regularly with us, you can do your calling how you want to do it, then that could be a good thing, right?
Yes, and it does suggest that, but I'm not sure that that's actually what's happening.
Well, so I do know that they did not before, but now they do. They have, I think it's the Relief Society president and maybe the Young Women's president. They sit on the board of trustees for church education, which is a huge department in the church. And the missionary department, right? They have the women on these decision-making councils.
Yeah.
And so it could be that this is an empowering thing. The one thing that gives me pause is that the women in the church are not on the council of the disposition of the tithes, because
they don't decide what happens with money.
Right. And in any organization, the money is sort of the most important thing. So if you don't have a say in the money, then maybe you don't really have a say in things. But it's hard for me to know on this.
Running an entire women's organization without having a say over what your budget is, for example. Yeah.
Right. So if somebody says, here's your budget. Now, I would imagine they let the Young Women's Presidency decide the theme for the year, what they want to do with FSY, right? They probably let them decide a lot. They probably have a lot of autonomy over young women things. But could a member of the Quorum of the 12 come in and say to them, I don't like the way you're doing this, you need to change it?
Yes, they could. They absolutely could, right?
Then I would like them to have a regular meeting with that person.
Yeah, I would too. I would like the general presidents to meet with the first presidency. I don't understand why we have to have so many meetings where no women have a voice. I mean, frankly, I would like Bishop Brick meeting to have a female in it too. And even though we're saying like, oh yeah, they're represented on these committees, they're certainly not percentage-wise represented anywhere near the men. It's 2 or 3 women to 17 or 18 men, so it is, better, but I don't think it's awesome.
It is a challenge, because I've learned that there's research out there that shows that you need to have a certain proportion of women in a meeting before the women feel free to share their voices.
Right.
There are some women that are outgoing and ambitious that are going to speak their mind no matter what. But if you want a kind of a consensus view of women, you need to have like 50-50 in that meeting being women. And so I've sort of seen in organizations where they say, we have this real problem with women feeling unrepresented. If you can get like enough women on decision-making committees, then you can solve those problems really quickly.
Yeah. And if we saw that the women actually had like authority, like I don't want you just talking about how you have authority. I want to see you using that authority, right? So just claiming I have authority, like that's fun. That's a fun step. And I know we're talking about that a lot, but I'm not seeing you actually have making those decisions and using that authority on your own still. I'm still not seeing that happening in the church. So
yeah. President Benson gave that talk, The 14 Fundamentals of Following the Prophet, which really
Uh-huh.
solidified the authority of the president of the church to speak for the Lord. It'd be fun to
Mm-hmm.
have a sister in the church give the 14 Fundamentals of Following the Relief Society General President and just see how
Right.
that goes over with the general church membership.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anyways,
Well,
yeah.
interesting, Melissa. Okay, so this isn't based on another story in the Salt Lake Tribune. Okay. Is it a problem when LDS culture intrudes on church doctrine? Here are 15 examples. Is that a big deal, little deal, or no deal? 3, 2, 1. No deal.
Big deal. I
Oh,
knew
big
you were gonna
deal.
say no deal. Well, I don't know if this story itself is a big deal, but this is my biggest deal, Matt, in church.
Oh,
This is
okay.
my biggest deal is culture versus doctrine. And when people decide that culture is I know the church is true. Like they're completely different things. And I just do feel like with such a global church and we've noticed this a little bit in some of the interview podcasts that we've been doing lately, right? Like we've interviewed people from different parts of the country. And guess what? The church looks different in different parts of the country. Does the
Yeah,
gospel look different? It shouldn't, right?
right.
It's not.
Yeah.
But okay, so like I'm going to tell you some culture things that bother me, okay?
Okay.
And you can
Yeah,
tell me
yeah.
that they shouldn't bother me. Okay.
Uh,
Men need to wear white shirts on Sunday.
yeah.
That's culture,
Totally
right?
culture.
That
Okay, but Elder Holland said it in church one time that in general conference that he wanted to see people with white shirts. But you're
Yeah,
right, it's
he
not
did, but that's
doctrine.
not doctrine, it's
Yeah,
culture.
yeah.
And yeah, and it even in the handbook, it says you don't have to do that. Like,
Well, I had my son come to me because he has this really nice blue shirt, and he was like, "Can I wear this to church?" And I was like, son, like, I always want to be in a spot where I could do the sacrament if I needed to do it, and then I always
yeah,
say I don't want to be a distraction, and so I always feel like I have to wear a white shirt and tie to church because if I had to do the sacrament, there might be somebody in the congregation that would get all salty that I'm wearing a
yeah,
blue shirt, and then
yeah.
I'm
They
like not
would
being
get all
reverent.
salty, and that is my problem. That's why this is a big deal. That's why.
Okay.
You don't need to get
Yeah.
salty. Similar, beards, okay? Men and
Oh,
beards.
yeah.
Like,
Yeah, yeah.
I'm so every time okay, listen, these are not my husband's issues, but he's the man in my life, so I'm gonna use him as an example. Every time he gets called into a bishopric, he's told to shave his beard.
Yeah, I know.
Okay, you don't have to not have a beard to be in a bishopric. I literally do not understand. And guess what? He does it because he follows his leaders and that's the kind of guy that he is. But I'm always like, don't do it. Wear your beard. You look great. It has nothing to do with the gospel. It has nothing to do with it.
Where I live in Rexburg, people will wear blue shirts with no ties and beards to church if they don't want to get a calling, right? Because it's their way of
Right.
saying I'm rebellious in ways that
Yeah.
aren't even rebellious at all, right?
Yeah. And have nothing, really though, have nothing to do with the gospel, right?
Do
Do
you
you
know
have
what's
any of
interesting?
those things that bug you?
Well, I'm just going to share a
No.
little story about this. I've had an occasion to just visit with a couple of different general authorities and
Okay.
complain about dress codes and the like. And it's funny because a lot of them hate the general authority dress code, right? General authorities
Yeah.
have to dress a certain way. And I do think what you're saying is true, Melissa. There are a lot of people in the church that don't like the way that culture or custom or tradition bleeds over into other things. But
Mhm.
because you have dress codes for general authorities, you have dress codes for missionaries, then people
Yeah.
just turn that into doctrine, which it isn't.
They turn it into doctrine. Yeah. Like
Yeah.
I'm happy that missionaries dress nice, look clean, look sharp, like have
Hmm.
haircuts. Like that's awesome, but yeah, that's not the gospel. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and especially because there are people, it's almost universally true of new members of the church. They do not have white shirts and ties. That's not
Right.
something people own. And they come to church and they feel like they're second class citizens sometimes. They feel not a part of things because they're
Right.
not looking like everybody else is looking. Because we show up to church like we're at a corporate boardroom or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah. You show up to church dressing like Jesus dressed. That's not okay. I'm just saying.
Hey, but
It's
pants
not
at
okay.
church? Is it okay for sisters to wear pants at church?
I don't think it's doctrinally not okay. I really don't. And guess what? In my YSA ward, I have a lot. Well, I'd say not a lot, maybe like 10 to 15% of those women wear pants, and they're nice dress pants, and they've dressed up and they've made an effort to be spiritually ready for church, and they're wearing pants. And I think that's a cultural thing too.
Our interview
Because
with
guess
June.
what?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, sorry. I was going to say, because guess what? When I was young, I got shamed if I didn't wear nylons to church.
Yes.
Yeah.
My wife still wears nylons to church, even though she
Which
hates
is
it.
fine if you want to, but
she
like,
doesn't.
I don't think that, yeah. If that's your way of dressing up and showing respect, you can totally do that. It's just where we say like, this is the appropriate thing to do. Like, this is the only appropriate thing to do, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, so our interview with June Rust dropped this week on This Week in Mormons, and I loved the part where she talks about how in the summertime people come to the church in shorts, right? And then sometimes they have a shirt and tie and shorts because they're there to go to the beach.
That's
or
what
whatever.
They have. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. I love the idea of like, we just welcome everybody. Now, is that how you should that be the only thing in your wardrobe? No. But if you are packing to go to the beach on vacation, I love that her attitude was, we're just glad you came to church when you're on vacation, and we're not going to get all uptight about what you chose to wear to church.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that was enough of my ranting. Thanks. Okay. Are you ready for my next rant?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Here's your headline. The cost of LDS temple garments. Is it too much to ask to pay for temple garments on top of the 10% of your income that is required to be eligible to wear them? Okay. Big deal, little deal, no deal. 3, 2, 1.
I'm going to say no deal.
Big deal. Yeah.
Oh,
I
really?
knew we were going to be off again. Well, yeah. Okay.
Temple garments are not that expensive.
You don't think so? You don't think paying, $5 to $6 for a top and $5 to $6 for a bottom is very expensive?
When I buy underwear for my kids, it's around that price. Is it not about that same price?
I don't know, obviously, because I haven't bought underwear for a long time. But here's what I feel. My temple garments wear out very quickly. Like, they wear out very quickly. And they don't stay, like, I don't want to go on too much of a rant about garments, but they don't stay white long enough that I feel like I don't have to replace them regularly. No matter how no matter how I launder them, they do, within 3 months, I would say, become something that I need to purchase again. And here's the thing. I mean, this article says like, oh, you already have to pay 10% of your income, referring to tithing, to be able to even be eligible to wear them. That's not my problem. My problem is, can temple garments not be free? Can we actually not just provide them for free? I think we can. And this is coming from me who, yes, I can afford them. But guess what? I think a lot of church members, especially when we're talking globally, this is a big expense. This is a big expense.
So let's say that, what do they say? There's 17 million members of the church. Let's say that there's 9 million people that are endowed in the whole world. And
let's say 10, because 10's an easier number to multiply by.
Okay.
Okay.
And then you're saying $6 for a top, right?
Yeah. And $6 for a bottom. I'm going to say $10 for a set of garments, because that's easier numbers too. Okay. So
times
10
million people.
Times 10. How much is that?
$100 million.
Times at least 7, because you got to do your wash once a week. So 700 million.
Okay. So if you had to choose.
Per year.
Yeah. So think how many temples you could build for that price.
3. I don't know. Honestly,
I'm just saying, if you had to choose 3 temples or free garments for life, I'm choosing temples over that.
Yeah, but I don't think we have to choose. I really don't think we have to choose. I think there's a lot of. I don't think the church is making a lot of money on temple garments, but I think we could provide them. I think we could provide, let's just at least provide 3 per person. And then if you want to buy more, you can.
You will want to. You just told me you want to buy more in a couple of months.
I know, that's the problem.
Melissa, law of consecration.
I didn't do the math before. It is an astoundingly large number. Okay.
The law of consecration is not 10%. We give everything to the church. So I think that to say, like, ultimately, God doesn't want our 10%. He wants our everything. So whether they could or couldn't afford to pay for garments for everybody, they wouldn't, because the whole thing is to learn to sacrifice for the Lord.
No, disagree. That's not what I think at all. Also,
Okay.
why don't we have something on our donation form where you can donate to the mission fund or you can donate to the garment fund? Like, I think we should be able to donate to the garment fund. Like honestly, like what about those saints in Africa who are taking their garments down to the river to wash them because like that's, the life that they live. And
Yeah.
like I do feel like it's a large cost. I really do. I don't think I'm alone. Listener, please give me support in my third rant of the day. Yeah.
To me, one of the beautiful things about the church is it's a global organization with local leadership.
That's
And
true.
any bishop in the church could choose to give garments for free to any member of his congregation whenever he wanted to. So if the bishops in Africa felt like the members were struggling and couldn't afford garments, he has it within his means to pay for those for the members in his congregation.
Okay. You're right.
Okay.
And I'm right. We're both right.
We're both right.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. This is my story. Tim Ballard's victims claim a connection between him and the late LDS apostle M. Russell Ballard. Is that a big deal, a little deal, or no deal? 3, 2, 1. No
Big
deal.
deal. Wait. Explain the story again.
Okay, so there's more stuff coming out because there's these lawsuits against Tim Ballard.
Founder of Operation Underground Railroad, accused of sexual abuse / violence of the people that worked for him. Is that a good recap?
Yeah.
Okay.
So in these allegations, they claim that President M. Russell Ballard, was aware of some of the things that Tim Ballard was doing and didn't do anything to stop it because he was just so enamored with Tim Ballard's writings on various subjects.
Okay, and to be clear, no relation, Tim Ballard and Elder Ballard, not related.
And their allegations in a lawsuit that are so far not verified, like in terms of they haven't been adjudicated, right?
Yeah.
So the reason I said no deal is because M. Russell Ballard admitted before he died that he had been duped by Tim Ballard.
Oh, did he?
Well, he said that Tim Ballard took advantage of their friendship. Like that was the first story we had on our podcast was Elder Ballard came out and said this, and then people were like, I don't think that that's true. So
yeah, that's right.
Elder Ballard basically said, like, Tim Ballard took advantage of our friendship, and I don't trust him anymore. And so is it possible that as president of the Quorum of the 12, Elder Ballard did or said things that seem to sanction or condone things Tim Ballard did? I think it's possible.
I think it's probable. Yeah.
Yeah. But he admitted to that in a very vague way.
Okay. Yeah.
The other reason I say it's no deal is because even if he did, it doesn't implicate the church in any way. The church never sanctioned what Tim Ballard did.
Yeah, that makes sense. So this is just coming out now because it's part of the lawsuits that are being filed.
Yeah, the civil suits against Tim Ballard.
I mean, I do feel bad that Elder Ballard, at his passing and then now after his passing, like this is sort of a story that's overshadowing a lot of that, right? Like his connection, his involvement. He lived a long life. He did a lot of good things. I do feel like he did endorse, and at times the church on their website endorsed Operation Underground Railroad and the work that they were doing. And the church does stuff like that. And I also feel like, Elder Ballard did separate himself when it was appropriate to do so. And I do feel bad that, this is going to be his name kind of dragged through the mud a little bit. But yeah.
Yeah. It happens, right? There's the Mark Hoffman stuff in the past. Leaders in the church can get duped by individuals and can trust people that they shouldn't trust. And the Lord doesn't always warn them and say, hey, this person's shady, be careful. And so I have no problem with the fact that happens sometimes.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Okay. I've got one more for you. Okay. This is kind of two stories in one, but there are 2 new docuseries coming out. And they will address Mormon-related stories. And I think that'll be all the headline for now. Big deal, little deal, no deal. Wait. Do you want to know what they are?
No, I need to know what channel. Are they on Netflix or Hulu? Do you know that?
No. I don't know. Well, because they're two different things. And one of them is just being created right now. Okay. Okay. So big deal, little deal, no deal. 3, 2, 1.
No deal.
Big deal.
Oh,
Yes.
okay. Well,
Is
you didn't
nothing
tell
a
me
big
what they're
deal to you?
about.
Do you
A
not care
docu
about anything?
a docu series about the church. I
Okay.
can turn
I'll
on
tell you
BYU
what they're about.
TV and see 80 of them.
I know, but I kind of think it's a big deal because this is happening a lot. Like there are these, I don't know, dramatic stories about LDS adjacent things.
You didn't tell me what they're about.
Okay, I'll tell you about the first one. This happened in 2019 in Mexico, kind of on the border. It was called the La Mora
Oh,
Massacre.
yeah.
Yeah. And this is a documentary on that. And it's gonna be intense. It's gonna be good. It's gonna have 4 episodes. And the majority of it is it's kind of like true crime. They're trying to find who perpetrated the massacre. But if I can
Wait. So,
kind of
because listeners don't
recap,
know this. Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
I'm not going to do a very good job of recapping, but basically, the city of Juarez is a border town and it's a really dangerous town and a lot of drug cartel stuff. And so there was a family that was driving in like a convoy, I guess, like 2 or 3 like SUVs kind of together, and they were attacked by a cartel and everybody was shot, and um over, I can't remember how many people died, but a lot of
They
people
were.
died and 35 people were arrested. Go on.
They're members of our church who live in
Yes.
Mexico, and they're
Yes.
white, and they're involved in growing something,
Yeah.
not drugs. But it was unclear because these LDS families were just gunned down and slaughtered. It was
Mhm.
unclear. Are they like involved in the drug trade? Were they a mistaken case? Like, this is a mystery that I still don't know the answer to. So now I'm very
Right.
interested in that story.
Yeah, I think I'm definitely gonna watch it. I don't think it's focusing a ton on the LDS aspect of it, but they were LDS and they
Yes.
were gunned down, and yeah, it was a really big deal. So
Yeah.
so that's the first one. I'm definitely going to watch that. Okay, the second one is about queer Mormon teens. Okay, so
Hmm.
it's about teens who grew up or are still in the LDS Church, who are queer. So that's like LGBTQ, any
Hmm.
kind of lesbian, gay, bisexual, anything like that.
Hmm.
And basically, it's just focusing on these teenagers' experiences within the LDS community. So this will be very Mormon focused. And
Hmm.
have you ever heard of Encircle?
No. No.
Encircle is a group. They're a nonprofit. They're in Utah, and they really work hard to create safe spaces for like queer teens that have been kicked out of their homes or don't have somewhere to go. They
Hmm.
build shelters. They do really, really good work in the Utah community. But so they're kind of they're focusing on Encircle and how Encircle takes these teens in a lot of times and gives them mental health services or just a place to live. So it's really focused on these teenagers telling their stories and what it was like, being in this highly religious community because it is in Utah,
Hmm.
and being queer and not fitting in and not feeling, I don't know, supported, loved, all of those things.
I'm less interested in that documentary. That one
Oh,
doesn't
really?
interest me as much.
I'm super interested in it just because I love any show where it's people telling their own story. I really like those kind of shows. And I do feel like a lot of times in Utah, we might hear a story like that and we're like, no, 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 no. That's not what the church believes. That's not what the church teaches. Or I've never known anybody who's treated their teenager like that or who's treated a queer kid like that. And the fact is like that shouldn't be our response. Okay. These things do happen. And I think it's important for us to be able to listen to people's experiences and say, yeah, maybe this isn't what the church teaches, but that doesn't mean that the members are responding well. That's what I think.
No, I agree. I think that I'm just less interested in it because I know so many LGBTQ young people, and
Mhm.
so the stories aren't interesting to me anymore. But I suppose hearing about N Circle, since I didn't know about them, like maybe that
Yeah.
would be interesting.
Well, and I think, recently we've heard a lot about David Archuleta.
Hmm.
He's famous, right? He's
Yeah,
well known.
very
And
famous.
he has come out recently and talked about his new song, Hell Together. And he's
Hmm.
talked about, this was my experience being a queer teenager in this church. And I think that a lot of the responses to David Archuleta have been negative, like you shouldn't talk about the church like that, or,
Yeah.
And I think that, that kind of shows the need for a docuseries like this to be like, hey, when people are just trying to share their experience, they're not being listened to. They're being judged more harshly, honestly. And so, yeah. Did you see David Archuleta on American Idol this week? You don't
No.
watch American Idol, do you?
I don't. The
I
Twin
really
Sisters talked
like
about
it.
American Idol too, and I thought, I wonder what the Venn diagram of American Idol watchers and Twin listeners is.
Well, because there is a LDS teen doing really, really well right now on American Idol.
Yeah.
She's doing awesome. But it was interesting because this week David Archuleta came on as like a guest singer to sing his new song. And because, he made it big because of American Idol. So
Yeah,
he
he's a
sang his
famous alum.
song. Yeah. So he sang his song Hell Together. And then it was just weird because they kind of, screenshotted him next to this little LDS girl who's about to sing right after him. And they're like, oh, here's our next Utah person. And, you could tell that she's a big David Archuleta fan, but she was like, oh, like I'm going to now be representing all of us. Oh, but like it did feel awkward for her, but he did an amazing job. But they did flat out ask him, like, why did you write the song? What does it mean? And he talked like in front of the whole nation about like, well, this was my experience. And after my mom saw that I didn't belong in this church, then my mom actually left the church. Like he talked about his mom leaving the church, like on American Idol. So,
Yeah.
I mean, it was a big news event, I thought.
Yeah, so to me, that's the part that's less interesting, right? Like, if you want to do a story about how our church is unkind to LGBTQ kids, everybody wants to hear that story. But if you want to hear the story about an LGBTQ kid who's found a way to fit in and belong or whatever, that's not as interesting in like the national media. I feel like it's a very divisive issue because on all sides of that issue, whatever side a person's on, they feel so justified in their position, and it generates a lot of anger towards the other side that people don't really listen to each other that much.
Yeah. No, I do
Especially
think that's the
within the
biggest
church.
problem. Yeah, I think that's the biggest problem is that we're not listening. We're feeling like we have to respond. We have to give the right answer, and we have to say, "Oh, but the church doesn't actually believe that." And I think that's the whole point. It's like, how about we just listen to each other and we let people share their experience, because I honestly think that's how healing happens, is by people feeling heard and listened to. You don't have to respond in a specific way in order to be following Jesus, right? You just have to have love and compassion. And part of empathy is just listening, is what I think.
Yeah. So I have, I'm going to say 3 close friends who are gay. And some of them are in the church, some of them are not. And each one of them is a very, very good person who loves the Lord and wants to be close to the Lord. And each one of them has said to me at a different time, I took this issue to the Lord and I prayed about it. And I feel like this is what I feel like I found my answer to my question of how I should live.
Okay.
And I feel like if somebody said that to me about Sabbath day observance, or if they said that to me about anything else in the church, I would say, perfect. That's exactly what you're supposed to do.
Yes.
But each one of these 3 close friends of mine have told me that they felt judged and condemned and ostracized by members of the church. And so that's the part that's kind of hard for me, right? Because we don't do that on other issues, and it does happen on that issue. And so I think when I see more of that stuff in the media, I'm like, I don't want to keep hearing that narrative. I want to hear the narrative of healing and because I clearly don't judge them. I clearly don't care what they do. I love them and for who they are, and I don't care what they choose to do. Or it's actually none of my business how they choose to what answer the Lord gives them. Like they are to me the same as every other of my friends who says I pray and I seek guidance. But for some reason, this issue, we don't seem to be that way.
Well, that's where we are in the world right now, right? And hopefully, in a generation from now, it will feel different.
Yeah. So then a lot of these docuseries seem to me to be like geared towards telling people, oh, members of the church are just bigots or they hate you or whatever. And I don't like that narrative anymore.
Well, we'll see. Well, I will watch it and I'll let you know if that's the narrative, because I'm definitely watching it.
You fill me in, Melissa.
Okay.
Okay, it's time for Twim Takes.
Okay, we don't have a lot of time for this, but I'm going to throw it out there anyways, okay? Because both of us have been loving and listening to the Chad Daybell trial. Yes. I am immersed in this trial. And but this is what I want to talk about for Twin Takes, okay? Because as part of this trial, there has been so much talk about fringe Mormonism. There has been talk about well, a lot of things, okay? And what I've noticed as I've kind of like gone into this rabbit hole is that there's this whole like preparing a people conference that keeps getting brought up in the Chad Daybell trial, right? Like they went to these conferences for preparing people. There's this website called Avow, and Chad and Lori Daybell were very deep into it. Anytime they call someone to testify, even if these people that are testifying had gone to preparing a people conference or were on Avow, they're always like, oh, no. I wasn't that involved. I only went to a couple conferences, right? Like they really want to distance themselves from ever having been involved. But guess what, Matt? Guess what? Breaking news. Guess who else always went to these preparing a people conferences and even like spoke at them?
Wait, who?
Ruby Franke. Right?
No.
Another famous. Oh, yeah. Ruby Franke.
Really?
Guess who else? Tim Ballard.
No.
Tim Ballard, very involved in the preparing a people movement. Yes.
They like watched all that stuff, right? It's so hard to find that information
or presented at those conferences. Yeah. Both of those presented at these preparing a people or similar type conferences, right? Like so these big Mormon crime stories that have been happening in the past few years, Chad Daybell, Tim Ballard, Ruby Franke, all involved in this kind of like underground fringe. Yeah, I don't know the right word, but and then you've got these people testifying who definitely knew about it, who definitely participated in it to some extent, right? They didn't commit crimes, right? And they're really wanting to distance themselves from it, but these are people who are, I'm not exaggerating, stake presidents, stake relief society presidents, temple workers, definitely go to the temple all the time. These are people who are deep in traditional church, right? Deep in, but also deep in these other like side things. And so I don't know what my take is, but like my head is spinning. Like, how does this happen? And again, I think with another story that we talked about earlier, this is kind of like why I feel uncomfortable about the whole women's conference thing that we talked about earlier, right? Because we're creating this culture where we go to these conferences and we listen to these people and we hear what they have to say and we follow them. And these are conferences where people are making money, in fact, making a living, promoting their theories, promoting their ideas, right? Ruby Franke, Tim Ballard, Chad Daybell. This is how they all made their money, their living, at least part of it. And then we have these faithful church members following them, getting involved. I don't know. My head is spinning thinking about all of it.
Well, and I had this little debate with my wife a couple days ago, because if you look, what are the most popular podcasts? They're all Come Follow Me podcasts. They're
right.
Hank Smith, John By the Way. And I'm not finding fault with any of those things, but it's but people make money off of teaching church principles. I was saying to my wife, that's priestcraft. And and her argument was, no, priestcraft is it's the intent behind which you do it. It's not bad to make money teaching gospel principles. It's bad if you're teaching gospel principles in order to like lift yourself up and in order to be popular and things like that.
Interesting. But, I think she's right. Cause we have a whole Deseret book that their whole business model is having church leaders write books to fund them, right?
Yeah.
Fund Deseret book and the people who are writing the books, right?
Yeah. Which is how Tim Ballard got started, right?
Correct.
And Chad Daybell, he says that he sent his stuff to Deseret book, but they were like, no, that's too fringe for us. But
he started his own publishing company and published lots of other people saying similar things, right? Like near-death experiences. That was basically his whole publishing company. Yeah.
And you really don't want Deseret book to be the arbitrator of what's true and false in terms of church doctrine, right?
But it's easy to look at them that way because they are publishing books by prophets and apostles. So it's easy to make that connection.
But they're also publishing a lot of romance and a lot of cookie recipes.
Sure.
Yeah. Because they're a for-profit business, right? They have to make money to,
Yeah.
Yeah, so the whole thing is, and I imagine people who are members of the church from other places, when they come to Utah and see that, it's probably just shocking to them that they're like, what is this? But at the same time, it's helpful to people, right? It does build faith. Like, I understand. I have a friend that does one of these podcasts that talks about church history stuff, and he's a religion professor. And it's like, he's been talking about church history for 20 years as a seminary teacher and a religion professor. Like, I can understand why somebody would want to just tune in and listen to that. And
yes, but Lori Daybell also had a podcast where she talked about religious stuff,
right?
And had a lot of followers from that. Yeah, it's really interesting.
So then maybe it's not the thing you're doing that's bad, but maybe my wife's right. It's the intent with which you're doing it. And if you're doing it with intent to lift yourself up, you're putting yourself out there to be deceived. And then that can lead you down a bad path really quickly.
Yeah. And really my bigger concern is how many people are getting sucked into these things. Matt, now I know you live in Rexburg and we've made fun of it a lot of times, right? But Rexburg, a lot of Rexburg was really sucked into this whole Chad Daybell thing he had going on, right?
Yeah, no, it's true. But I listen, people can get deceived. Like I don't blame people who get deceived. Like I understand how that happens. And I also have a hard time finding fault with somebody who chooses to go to one of those conferences, because they really are just earnest, honest seekers of truth. And we believe that you can find truth anywhere. So why not go to a conference and hear what they have to say?
Yeah, I totally understand. I understand, like, you're wanting to better yourself, you're wanting to improve your spirituality. Like, the motive is good. Yeah.
But you have to have you have to have checks. Like, I have in my own personal life, I have these checks that when there's something that is new information or there's something I want to believe, I have people I go to that I know will speak with me honestly and say, that's the stupidest idea I've ever heard.
Don't bury children in your backyard, for example. Don't do that.
And I think people have to develop that, because aside from the stuff in the news, there's people in my own life that I know very, very well who've been deceived in this way. And it happens so quickly and it happens so easily. And so it's on us to, like, I say, go ahead and listen to what you want to listen to, but you need to have checks in place to keep yourself in line and keep yourself from going down some kind of a strange path.
Yeah. Good, Matt. And listener, when you see us going down some strange path,
let us know.
Feel free to reach out. Contact at thisweekinmormons.com.
We love opening the mailbag and having you say, that was insane.
Yeah.
Well, we don't have time for This Week in Mormon History, but we're going to put it. We'll put it in the show notes if the listener wants to check it out.
Yeah, so that sounds good.
Just want to remind you, listener, that you can subscribe to Patreon and get bonus content for just a few dollars a month. And we're on social media, on Facebook, we're on Twitter. Of course, there's the interviews that we've been doing on This Week in Mormons. I love them, Melissa. I think they're great. Do you like them?
Yeah, we've been getting great feedback. It's been super enjoyable and fun to listen to different members of the church and the things they're doing out there in the world. It's been great.
Yeah, we have 3 that we've already done that haven't dropped yet that I just can't wait to get them out there. They're just so fun. And listener, if there's anyone you want us to interview, send us an email. We'd love to contact at thisweekinmormons.com. We'd love to reach out to anybody you think would be fun to listen to. Like, we're picking the people we want to hear from. And as Melissa pointed out, oftentimes I'm choosing men and not women. If there's people you want to hear from, let us know, because we'd love to. We'll talk to anybody. I will ask anybody to join us. I'm not afraid to do that. And thank you for listening to the original Mormon/Latter-day Saint news podcast. Thanks for joining us this week. It was great. Talk to you next week.